A couple of weeks ago, I made a video about my experiences shooting an iPhone in Edinburgh. Long story short, I couldn't get motivated to use my main camera, so I just resorted to an iPhone and spent 2 days in Edinburgh shooting still images on an iPhone. From there, I started to get the idea of shooting my upcoming Asia trip in September solely on iPhone and DJI Pocket 3, which is what I'm shooting on at the moment. So I invested in an iPhone 15 Pro, and on Monday I went out and shot a cinematic video of Durham in the summer. This is the rig that I used. This is the video. Stay tuned to the end and I will explain the rig and my editing procedures. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know in the comments if there's anything I could improve, do better. Obviously, it was a first attempt with an iPhone, so there are mistakes, there are things I need to learn. But personally speaking, I think as a first effort, I think it came out really, really well. So let's talk a little bit about the kit. The iPhone is the 15 Pro. It's the base model of 128 gig. And the reason for that is that now we have USB-C version 3, I can plug an SSD into the back and run the video straight into the hard drive. That's huge because it means I can also shoot 10-bit log ProRes footage. Now, if you're not sure exactly what that means, 10-bit means you get a lot more color definition, less banding in the color. It's pretty much the standard for high quality video these days. The best way to think of log is as a raw format. It's a very, very flat format, like a raw file. It's not actually a raw file similar to photos where it's straight off the sensor. There is processing done to it, but it's a very flat profile that gives you a lot of latitude in the editing procedure. You've got a lot of dynamic range in it. ProRes is a codec which is a little also like RAW in that it captures much more data without compressing it. If you, for example, shoot in an MP4, that file is very, very compressed. All the information that's coming off that beautiful sensor is crushed down into virtually nothing. Whereas with ProRes, it's not the full readout of the sensor. It is compressed, but nowhere near as much as it can be. Now, there are various levels of ProRes, and the base camera app uses ProRes Max, but by using secondary apps, I can use things like ProRes Lite, which is compressing more, but still giving you a huge amount of data, but not taking up quite as much space on this hard drive. So the rig itself, I have a small rig adapter here. This literally lifts and allows me to pop the phone into the rig. That has a 1/4 inch socket on the bottom, so I can mount it onto a monopod, tripod, or even a gimbal. I'm actually looking at taking my Ronin 3 Mini with me to Asia to see how that works with this. On the front, I have another little adapter. This holds the SSD. This is a Samsung T5 1TB, and I have a cable which is USB-C 3.2, which is fast enough to transfer the data between the phone and the SSD at maximum resolution. So I can record pretty much whatever resolution I wish to look at. It's put into a newer case, and in the case I have a filter adapter which allows me to put 67mm filters on the front. This one's quite an old one. I need to invest in a new one. There's actually some slight damage. It's a Sandmarc, and I think it goes from ND2 to ND6. It's a variable ND. But there is a little bit of damage in it. Doesn't cover the lens, but I am going to invest in a new ND filter before I go off to Asia. So in terms of apps, I use two different apps. I use the Blackmagic camera app, which allows me a huge amount of control. You've got peaking, you've got histograms, you've got highlights, zebras, you've got the ability to shoot various levels of ProRes, zoom in, zoom out. It's a really, really powerful app. I used that for much of the footage, but I also tested the latest Final Cut camera, which has only come out this week. It's not as good, in my opinion, as the Blackmagic camera as it stands. There was no highlight zebras, there was no histogram, and there's no 180-degree shutter. It's only shutter speeds. So it was fairly limited. But overall, I've been really, really pleased with this rig. So let's talk a little bit about the editing. And in the editing, I imported all the images, I created the little video, put some sound to it. And for the color correction and grading, I applied, because it was shot in Apple Log, I applied the Apple Log LUT to each of the clips all the way through. And then I color corrected each one. So I leveled out the exposures using the scopes, and then I just color corrected to neutral each individual clip. I then put an adjustment layer over the top of the entire timeline, and to that I added a secondary LUT, which was a color style LUT. And I used two different versions. For the first part of the film where we're walking around the riverbanks area, I did a summery look, and then for the area where we walked in the town, I did a little flatter look, more cinematic style, but still trying to keep that summery feel. Personally, I think it's come out really well. I don't know what you think about it. Like I said at the beginning, if you see anything there I can get better or I can improve, I'm happy to take that on board and keep working to get this video quality as high as I can before I go off to Asia. I've really enjoyed doing this video on this camera, and I can see myself doing it a lot more. I'd like to compare the image quality of this compared to my XH2, and if you'd like to see that video, let me know, because it's certainly something I want to do. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, a thumbs up would be brilliant, a subscription would be even better, and I will see you in the next one.